So the topic I chose was green streets and community health. So kind of the basics of what a green street actually is. A green street is a stormwater management approach that seeks to incorporate vegetation and permeable pavements and kind of like tree beds and a lot of agriculture to slow and filter stormwater runoff from the streets and sidewalks. And if you think of just kind of a regular street, you think of like a storm drain for stormwater. And this is especially important in like cities where there's a lot of pollution that these stormwater drains will discharge into nearby bodies of water and pollute them. So that's why green streets and just green infrastructure in general is really important. So this is kind of the anatomy of what a green street actually is. As you can see, there's bike lanes, the area for cars is much smaller, the sidewalks are larger, a lot more trees than you would really think for an actual street that you see all the time. And these are kind of like artist concepts of what a green street actually is. But I thought it might be more beneficial or more interesting to me to actually find out what are some non-environmental benefits of green streets. And I kind of broke this into like three categories. So financial, mental, and physical for like benefits for the community members. So in terms of financial, the stormwater management approach is a lot more cost effective than normal streets, so non-green streets. And the when you create these green streets, it creates a lot more jobs. Just to be specific, it's the constant maintenance of the green streets is a huge factor in employment for cities that implement these green streets, and it's really unskilled labor, so the training costs are very low. Additionally, there's a general just enhancement of the economic value and development of green streets. Like the more, if you think of a non-green street compared to a green street, there's a better chance for businesses to pop up, better chance for people to come and want to live there. So going off that, there's a much higher property value compared to non-green streets. Neighborhoods in greener areas are much more desirable and therefore have more value. And like I said before, small businesses become much more valuable in areas like this because it's just better. People would rather be in areas that are greener and have green streets than areas that don't. Going off that again, there's an increased amount of tourism, what people see for green streets. So as an example, the EPA did a study into Saratoga, New York, and they found that it's better to expand the developed neighborhoods and employment centers and kind of keep what already brings people there so you can benefit community members and people who are tourists. And if you think of Worcester versus Boston, you really think of Boston as like more of a tourist center because Boston in general is greener. This is probably not the fairest comparison, but I think it stands. As for mentally, people have a larger peace of mind when it comes to green streets because the lighting on green streets is much better, like the street lights. The University of Chicago did a study and they found that crime rates went down 36% in areas that had better lighting. And again, this draws families and draws people to the area. And there's a larger area for recreation. So there's an encouragement of social interaction. It helps children develop cognitive, emotional, and behavioral connections. And just as an example, the beautification of Tanner Springs Park in Portland, Oregon, they kind of developed a way that they could add to the community by like bringing artwork in and stuff like that. Physically, there's air quality improvements. There's a greater walkability in places like this. So there's the less need for cars and there's less space for cars, so will be less need for cars. And bike lanes, I didn't really talk much about this, but bike lanes in general promote physical activity, and the exercise really improves cognitive function. A lot of people have done research into this and found out that exercise does improve cognitive function. With larger sidewalks as like a tenant of green streets, there's a better chance that pedestrians will be safe, and it really protects at-risk populations. So vulnerable people like old people and those with health conditions and non-English speakers. Especially there was a study that said the probability of 5-year survival for senior citizens studied in a certain study increased in accordance with the space for taking a stroll near residents, arching trees lined streets near the residents, and their preference to continue living in their current community. So it's really like a valuable asset for older populations. So in conclusion, green streets are much more than just for the environment and broadly green infrastructure. They create more resilient communities to climate change and other external factors by allowing people to succeed financially, mentally, and physically.